Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will discuss about history of aviation in India. Year event 1953. 9 airlines existed including Indian Airlines and Air India. 1953 Nationalization of all private airlines through Air Corporations Act. 1986 Private players permitted to operate as air taxi operators. 1994 Air Corporation Act. 1953 repealed. Private players permitted to operate scheduled airlines. 1995 Jet, Sahara, Modiloft, Damania, and East-West granted scheduled carrier status. 1997 4 out of 6 operators shut down. Jet and Sahara continue. 1997 India's first Greenfield Public-Private Partnership (PPP) airport developed in Cochin. 2001 Aviation turbine fuel (ATF) prices decontrolled. 2003 Air Deccan starts operations as India's first low-cost carrier (LCC). 2004 to 2005 Kingfisher, SpiceJet, Indigo, Go Air, and Paramount start operations. 2007 Industry consolidates. Jet Airways acquires Air Sahara, Kingfisher acquires Air Deccan, and Air India acquires Indian. 2010 SpiceJet starts international operations. SpiceJet starts international operations. 2011 Indigo starts international operations. Kingfisher exits LCC segment. 2012 Indigo starts international operations. Kingfisher exits LCC segment. FDI allows for foreign airlines to hold up to 49% stake in scheduled and non-scheduled air transport services, while NRIs are permitted to hold 100% equity in airlines. 2013 Singapore-based Tiger Air enters into an interline agreement with SpiceJet. 2014 AirAsia, a joint venture between Tata Sons, Malaysia's Asia Bird, and Aranbasia's Telestra Trade Place, and Vistara, a joint venture between Tata Sons and Singapore Airlines, entered the market. 2015 Indigo launches one of the largest IPOs in Indian history. 2016 Jet Airways to merge with Jetlight in order to complete its exit from the LCC segment. 2017 Gulf of India decided to privatize Air India. 2018 Air India's sale fails with no bidder. Life of J.R.D. Tata was a convergence of influences and interests. Born in 1904 in Paris, to a French mother and Indian father, he successfully straddled two cultures, eventually receiving both the French Legion of Honor and India's highest civilian award, the Bharat Ratna. In 1929 he became the first person in the country to be issued with a pilot license. He competed for the Aga Khan Trophy, which was being offered to the first Indian to fly solo from India to England or vice versa. JRD was flying from Karachi to London and landed en route at Abqa Bay in Egypt. There he discovered another competitor, flying in the opposite direction, stranded by the lack of a spark plug. JRD willingly gave him his spare one and was ultimately defeated by a couple of hours. In 1932, JRD set up Tata Airlines, the first Indian commercial carrier to transport mail and passengers within India. The company was based out of a small hut with a palm-thatched roof at Jaya Strip in Bombay, Mumbai. JRD flew the first leg of the inaugural Karachi-Madras-Chennai journey himself, taking mail from Karachi to Bombay via Ahmedabad using a single-engine de Havilland Pusmoth. Tata Airlines became Air India in 1946. 2 years later, following Indian independence, the government took 49% of the company, also giving itself the option to acquire an additional 2%. Following JRD recommendation, the government established Indian Airlines to run domestic services while JRD took the helm of Air India International, which was granted a license to operate international flights. Introduction to the Project Sud Aviation Caravel airliner in 1964, followed by Boeing 737-200s in early 70s. First 3 Airbus A300 were introduced in April 1976. The regional airline, Vayudut, established in 1981, was reintegrated. By 90s, Airbus A300 and 2200s were introduced. The world's first airmail service was started in India at Allahabad, on 18th of February 1911, the occasion of Kumbh Mela. This in turn led the beginning of civil aviation in India. On the special day, Henry Pickett carried 6,500 mails on a Humber biplane from Allahabad to Naini, covering almost a distance of 10 kilometers. The first international flight to and from India was introduced in December 1912 over the route London-Karachi-Delhi with the collaboration of Indian State Air Services and UK-based Imperial Airways. Regular airmail services were started by Tata Sons Limited, between Karachi and Madras. On 24 Jan 1920, Royal Air Force started regular airmail services between Karachi and Bombay. Construction of airports in India started at Dumdum in Calcutta, Bamrolai in Allahabad, and Gilbert Hill of Bombay in 1924. Separate Department of Civil Aviation was set up in April 1927. Also, Aero Club of India was established the same year. Shelmadine became the first Director General of Civil Aviation (DGCA) in 1931. Tata Airlines became a division of Tata Sons Limited in 1932. It started air mail services on the Karachi, Ahmedabad, Bombay, Bellary, Madras routes on 15 October. In 1932, Urmila K. Parekh became the first Indian woman to get a pilot Macron-S license. A number of other airlines such as Indian Transcontinental Airways, Madras Air Taxi Services, Indian National Airways, etc. commenced in between the year 1933 to 1934. Indian Aircraft Act was promulgated in 1934 and was formulated in 1937. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited (HAL), set up by Walkandhira and in association with the then Mysore government in 1940 at Bangalore. In 1945, the Deccan Airways was founded, jointly owned by the Nizam of Hyderabad and Tata. Its first flight began in July 1946. In 1946, Air India came into being when Tata Airlines changed its name to Air India. In March 1953, the Indian Parliament passed the Air Corporations Act, and Indian Airlines and Air India International were set up after nationalization of the entire airline industry. At this time, 8 formerly independent domestic airlines, Deccan Airways, Airways India, Bharat Airways, Himalayan Aviation, Kalinga Airlines, Indian National Airways, Air India, Air Services of India were merged. In 1972, the International Airports Authority of India (IAI) was constituted and Vayudut Airlines, a government-owned airline company, started operation in the year 1981. In 1960, India entered the jet age with the introduction of Boeing 707-437 into the fleet of Air India, and USA was connected to India for the first time by an Indian airline flight. Year 1985 came to be known as most traumatic year for Indian aviation when Air India flight AI-182 between Montreal and Delhi was blown up by terrorists over the Atlantic Ocean. Following this, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security was established in 1987. In 1990–91, the entry of private airlines began. After the deregulation of the civil aviation sector, private airlines were given permission to operate charter and non-scheduled services under the "registered air taxi" Macron scheme. The East-West Airlines was the first national-level private airline to operate in the country after almost 37 years. 1990 was also a landmark year for Indian civil aviation and Air India when Air India entered the Guinness Book of World Records for largest evacuation effort by a single civilian airline when it flew over 1,11,000 people from Oman to Mumbai in 59 days, operating 488 flights just before the Gulf War began. In 1990, Captain Naivedi Basin of Indian Airlines at 26 became the youngest pilot in civil aviation history to command a jet aircraft. She also became the first woman Czech pilot on an Airbus A300 aircraft. In 1994, following the repeal of the Air Corporation Act, private airlines were permitted to operate scheduled services, and a number of private players including Jet Airways, Air Sahara, Modiluft, Damania Airways, Nepc Airlines and East West Airlines commenced domestic operations. In 1995, Airport Authority of India (AI) was constituted after the merging of the International Airport Authority of India with National Airports Authority. In 2005, rebranding of Indian Airlines was done as Indian. It also saw the entry of the Kingfisher Airlines. This year the government designated Air India, Indian Airlines, Jet Airways and Air Sahara to operate international services. In 2006, the government approved the restructuring and modernization of Mumbai and Delhi Airport through public-private partnership. In 2007, Regional Airlines Policy was announced, wherein licenses were given for operation of airlines within a particular region. To regulate the economic aspects of airports, the Parliament passed the Airports Economic Regulatory Authority (ERA) Bill, and the ERA was set up in 2009. The brand new Integrated Terminal T3 was inaugurated in New Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport in July 2010, and in December 2010, Pawan Hans started its seaplane services Jal Hans. At present, India holds the 9th largest aviation market in the world with 82 operational airports, 735 aircraft, 12 operational scheduled airlines and 121 non-scheduled operators. The number of air passengers traveling in India is expected to cross 50 million this year.